Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Um, so for this one, it's going to be a little bit new for me. I haven't done any live streaming before, so bear with me a little bit as I struggle through this. So the big thing here, I want to hear from you guys. What is it that you guys want to see on the channel? What kind of things should I be looking at developing? What kind of things should I be trying to bring to the market? What do we need as builders? What do we need to make our jobs easier? That's how it all started for me. I was a builder, got into it because I had a car, didn't really have a lot of support for it in the lighting market, so I decided to make my own lights. I made a set, people liked them, and more people wanted me to build lights for their cars, and it just kept building and building and building from there. And eventually it got to the point where I did not like the parts that were available for me to use. I went from this new guy that knew nothing about any of this world to knowing enough to know that I did not like what I had, and I couldn't understand why the quality was never really, at least not for addressable color flow, things like that. It was just never where I felt like it should be. And a lot of other builders felt the same way when I expressed concerns with them. They didn't have a solution, but they agreed there's an issue. So it put me in the position where I desperately wanted to find better options, and so it was investing a lot of money into one product at a time, very slowly, trying to bring other people on board, other builders that I knew that were helping to purchase those things and make them available to everybody. And more people came on board. More and more people started recognizing that I was getting some traction, getting better parts built, and helping to invest in that to have our voices heard in China, if you will, manufacturers. Now I have manufacturers that I work very closely with. I tell them what I want. They get to work immediately on it, and we get it created. So thanks to you guys, we've gotten some traction in that field as far as getting things made that people want. But beyond that, it's like, well, okay, I've made a ton of things. I've still got more ideas, but I want to hear what you guys think. What is it that you guys want to see created? Things that don't exist, that quite frankly probably should. LEDs and different things, that can be used in different formats, and figuring out what those formats are within reason. I mean, I get a lot of ideas from people sometimes that just straight up cannot be done, and then some things we just have to wait till the technology advances and then we jump on it. But input is great. Another aspect is the YouTube channel itself. I want to help people get to the point that I've gotten to. I felt like when I got into retrofitting, there was not a ton of support. I mean, there was, you search up a retrofit video, you're going to find some out there where they're like, here's how to put a projector in a housing. Those are common enough, not too bad to find. You're going to find a couple with, a little bit of information about LEDs. Not a ton on addressable. That seemed to be rather lacking. Which is interesting because addressable is probably one of the more technical builds, which is why I love it. I love it because it is a custom build more so than what you would get with a simple RGB halo or something like that. I think it works well in that sense. And then just making it work and making it work better and figuring out what tricks you have to do with it to make it work better. You buy an RGB halo, you buy a switchback, you buy something like that. It comes with a driver, so it's basically got an all-in-one package. It's ready to go. Where with addressable, it's a little bit more of a custom package, and you have to. I don't know, my camera's going crazy on me here. So live stream woes. I wanted to work on focus on that thing, but we'll suffer through this for now. But yeah, so trying to make those better. Videos to help people with what I've learned, and I'm still learning. I still communicate with other builders. I still get feedback. Many times I have developed parts that I test rigorously in here, in my oven, and other places, and other ways to push the LEDs as far as I can to determine whether or not I trust them to use myself and to sell to other people. Sometimes they slip through the cracks. Sometimes I don't see the problems, and you guys see them, and you guys give me the input, and we work to get it fixed. The Demonize are one of those cases where they were working really good. Those old 12-volt Demonize that I was selling, they were bright, they looked great in the lights. They were a little difficult to work with. That was something I wanted to get fixed. But then we started having some issues down the line, and that was something that it was abundantly clear needed to be fixed, needed to be addressed, and that's something that I've put a lot of time into. That is why they're kind of AWOL on the site right now. As the age got on them a little bit more, it just became apparent that it was not something I wanted to put my name behind anymore. So we got rid of them, sold out what we had to whoever wanted it, and that's it. We're out. Warranties still. If you have problems, let me know. But we're moving on to something different, new designs, redoing some things, trying to get most of my products under one manufacturer now. That was one that was being made by another group of manufacturers. I was able to get them to tweak the design to fit better for what we were doing. So you're not going to find exactly what that was online, but it was basically an Alibaba product that was tweaked for our market. Not so much an actual all original creation as much as I want most of my stuff to be. And a lot of the stuff that I sell is original stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. And that's just, a testament to what we're doing here, what I'm trying to do, and what many of you have been doing with me. I try to reiterate that too more and more. The cost of development does have a cost. Now, you can go on Alibaba and buy something. It may not be exactly what I have, but it might be something similar and save some money, and, kudos. Good for you. The problem with that is that to push manufacturers to make better products, you have to have some buying power. You have to be able to invest in things. I have some manufacturers, I have invested in equipment for them so that they can expand in what they create. That's not something that just buying product would have made happen. It's something that had to go a little bit beyond that, and that's where buying from me helps me to get that collective money to be able to create that buying power and get things. So I greatly appreciate that. And hopefully you guys are feeling the return on that investment, as well as me trying to get relatively quick turnarounds. I know how it is. You're building, you don't have something, you need it now. It's not okay to wait 3 weeks for something, 2 weeks for a part. And I do my best to try to get everything out. I ship every day, Monday through Friday. Some Saturdays I will ship as well, but I try to get it out to you guys as quick as I can to help alleviate some of that. With that as well, that means a massive amount of inventory that has to be on hand. So once again, definitely the support is hugely appreciated when it comes to that. But that'll be the main thing for the video here, is just try to get some input from you guys. I do see some people chiming in. Awesome. Try to figure out what it is that you guys want to see in the videos and what you guys want to see product-wise, new ideas. I've actually had some pretty good suggestions this week. So definitely looking forward to some of those becoming a reality here soon. Let's see what any questions on here. So we got more wiring and programming instructional videos. Absolutely. That's definitely on the pipeline. I do have some new stuff coming in next week. We have revamped our the LEDs for the UCS 2904. So that's something I would be kind of covering, is like different LED types. I drop names a lot of brands, models, LED chipset types. I typically stick within the RGBW category, which is a lot narrower than what you're going to get with the RGB. But within that, we try to expand as much as I can, and we have actually developed a new LED to go with our UCS 2904s. And at least on the MCD scales, we're seeing about a 14% increase. So, seeing is everything. I'm going to get them in for the first time next week and get to see them in person and see comparably how they look. And I do want to do a video on that to give you guys a little side-by-side, see what the updates are coming. Obviously, I do have a good bit of UCS inventory I have to work through first before I can get to that. But I do have some new things coming in next week that will have those on it. So definitely look out for those. The easiest way, if you're not familiar, follow us on Instagram or Facebook. I try to put notices about every new product we drop, as well as new inventory. I know right now we're out of Hex Halos. That is something that you will get an update if you follow us on those social platforms as to new products coming in and replenishment of old products. Let's see, what other questions? Videos from Next Level Neo is always the top of my watch list. They are by far the most informative so far. I'm glad to hear it. I've heard from many people that they're a little bit long-winded, and I can definitely understand why somebody would say that. But I also feel like this is not something you can cut up, chop up, and skip a bunch of data. So it's trying to find that fine line between those, and that's something I want to try to focus on more so with the YouTube channel now that I've gotten a lot of my builds caught up. I still have builds that I got to get done as a retrofitter myself, along with everything else that I'm trying to do here. But it is something that I do want to try to shorten them, get as much information in there as I can, but in a way that doesn't make you feel bored while you're watching it. So that is something I want to be working on. But yes, the long form videos, I don't see them going away, but I do want to start doing more short, quick videos as they make sense. So it's a question of like, I recently did one on stripping chrome. That was a really short video. It didn't take 35 seconds, and you have all the information you need in that time frame. Stuff like that I would love to do more of. But the long form stuff I think is still very necessary for certain things, as well as I think I want to add more custom builds. As I build them, I want to try to record more of them, especially the off-the-wall builds, but even the newer stuff too, because this is so custom. It's very difficult to watch a video of a light that you don't have and try to build your own lights with that. So definitely, yeah, that's something I do plan on doing a lot more of, and figure out what kind of topics you guys want on that. All right, what else we got? Thanks for the controller. Works perfect. Awesome. Great. Glad you got it. On the channel, looking into Blue Ghost controllers. Not looking to do RGBW lights on my Rex. What do you recommend for the controller box? Okay, so WRX, I mean, for me personally, I go Ghost on everything unless Ghost is not the best option. Ghost is great. Ghost is awesome. I know the guys over there very well. I've met Dan before. He's actually about an hour and a half from here. And they care. They put more updates out. They listen to user feedback. They have an amazing warranty, and they are definitely the controller of my choice. They are more expensive, so it's that kind of thing where you have to kind of decide. And there's some lights where the outlook, the results of the build aren't too bad, so you can kind of go with a more simple controller like the one that we sell. That controller's meant more for like dropping a halo or maybe 2 pair of halos in a light, and you don't need a ton. They work well with the chargers and the K5s as well. If you're just doing the DRL strips that go around the chargers, as well as the little bolt that goes up the side, If you're doing much more than that on a build, though, you probably want to step up to the Ghost. It's definitely user preference, but I feel like if you once you realize what the Ghost would have offered you, you'll feel some remorse for not going with the Ghost over the other controllers. We try to make them available. Obviously, the SP controllers have been around forever. You can get them on Amazon cheap. So we did have one developed that has some of the Ghost features. There's been some on the market for a while now that just had turn signals and DRLs, but we wanted more. It's an addressable, so let's make it do something. So we had startup animations, the sequential turn signals, and we are now working on adding our power saver into those controllers as well. And a lot of that is because of reliability and the extra reliability you get with addressable by having a power saver built in. It's not something we can really do with the Ghost. I mean, we do make those controllers with the power savers in them, but it's pretty expensive at that point if we're making it for you. If you buy the parts, I think between the two controllers in a box, you're like $160 roughly. So that's not too bad. But that is with you making it. If you would like us to make it, I believe a Pro controller right now is $400, and that includes the power saver, that includes the wiring. That's like a Pro harness. If you're buying a set of lights from us, that's how you're going to get your controller. We've just made it so that you can focus on building the lights and not have to worry about the controller part. So that is available on the site. That is something that we do. Quite honestly, I don't like selling them because it does take a lot of time, but I want to make it available to you guys at the same point. So it's set at a price point that makes sense for me to take the time out to get it done, but at the same point, you got to decide if you want it. I would highly encourage anybody that feels somewhat competent, that we do have some videos on that, how to create that controller. Watch them, get an idea if you feel comfortable doing it, and if you do, go for it. Give it a shot. If you don't, that's what the Pro is for. That's what the other controllers are for. But I would definitely recommend some kind of a power saver, whichever one you go with. And personally, I would go with the Ghost controller. We do have a video on the channel going over the basic WRX build with the 15 to 22 base models, so like not the limiteds, but the base. Nowadays, there's so many aftermarket lights. I don't know which set you were planning on going with, but you may be better off, kind of winging it with some of the. If I had a WRX, I wouldn't go OEM. I would go with something. I don't know. I'd take a pick. There's tons of them. The VLANs look pretty darn good. I did a set of those recently. That was really cool looking. But yeah, something like that. Let's see what else we got here. Want a dome light to be a trigger for a relay fluctuating ground, but the relay buzzes when I close my doors. So, on my Forester, I wanted to do that with some lighting that would turn on when I opened the doors, and I found that my dome light was ground triggered, and it was a weird ground. It was like it was a gradual drop, and I guess it makes sense because the stock dome lights, when I opened the doors, it would turn on, and then when you shut the doors, it would dim down, even though it was just halogen. So something in the electrical. And what I was able to do is get they make these relays that you can use a timer basically, and that trigger will trigger it, and then once the trigger turns off, there's a timer before it shuts out, and then that reverses closes the latch. So that would give me a delay when I shut the door, as well as it seemed to absorb that little built-in delay that the doors had. And I could also change it on the fly because it's a little turn dial on the relay itself. If you hit me up, private message me, I will try to find a link for that, and that might help you. In the case of my car, because it was ground triggered, I did have to use two relays, and one triggered the other relay, and that way I could flip from ground triggered to power triggered, and that seemed to work in my case. I don't know if your car is the same, but it kind of sounds like a similar setup, so that might be a way to work around it. The ghost video from 4 months ago. Yes. Well, I'm glad it helped. That was another one of those long-winded videos with a lot in it, and probably some other stuff that I didn't cover. I had somebody ask me about show modes. That's something that is an interesting idea for a future video, something where I can get the right set of lights, and it's got to be the right set of lights, I think. It's got to be something flashy, but getting that video together with the show modes, going over them, going over the tweaks. I get a lot of people to ask, is like, oh, well, Ghost only has like 24 show modes. Yeah, but you can tweak them all to such a degree that you can create a ton of show modes. Just the simple hitting that little block button on there, each of the show modes has a block button on the show mode, and if you hit that, it will completely change the order and the direction that all the LEDs go. Just that alone is huge. On my taillights, I generally do that because I have a flow direction for them, but when I'm doing show modes, I kind of want them just doing their own thing because it's like one of them galaxy tail looking things, basically, and so that's another feature. But yeah, so I'd like to do a video like that in the future, go in a little bit more depth on other aspects. But as far as the basic programming goes, I think that covered it pretty well. I've also been asked about the Galaxy Tail programming, because that is a little bit different than what I did on that video. That's something I do want to do as well. I got to get a build on the schedule for me to be able to do that. So that's something at some point will get done. And I'd like to try to upload that when I can, for sure. All right, what else we got here? Different ways to incorporate the Blue Ghost controller. Yes. Yeah, I mean, gosh. The owner of Ghost has one on his back deck. I think the options are endless. I did lights, Christmas lights on my house. I used Ghost. So there's definitely a ton of options. I mean, if you can put an addressable strip somewhere, you can put a Ghost. So, yeah, maybe I'll come up with something really creative to use one in, but definitely a ton of options for that. Expected life of addressable strips. Now that's a loaded question. This stuff is very custom, meaning if your plan is to buy a roll of strips from Amazon and an SP controller, your results may vary. I'll say if you're doing it inside of a house where you have a controlled voltage regulation, you'll do pretty well. But if you're doing it in a car where voltage fluctuates, batteries die, and things like that, a lot less. But also heat. I mean, heat can play a role in it. I do not recommend mixing addressable and HIDs. It's just not a good idea. I don't even like mixing them with halogens. You're probably okay if you mix it with halogens. I don't recommend it. I like LEDs because LEDs don't get as just violently hot. Halogen bulbs will melt plastic. HID bulbs will do that and more. And so I don't like using them with that. I think that'll shorten your life quite a bit. The addition of the power savers, the big function of that is to cut on the power draw to the battery. What I've seen is that with things like SK, WS, so anything with the IC on the face of the LED, for the most part from what I've seen, SK6812s, the WS2812s, there's tons of them, TM chipsets, things like that, they seem to struggle with voltage drop, especially if it's 5 volt. It seems like the inverters do really well from about 8 volts to 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever. Over voltage doesn't seem to be an issue with those. It's the under voltage more so, at least car wise. You send 100 volts to it, you might have an issue. But when you drop to about 8 volts, they seem to want to start going crazy. You can try this on a bench or something. You got some spare LEDs you don't care about. Put them on a bench, drop that voltage down to about 8 volts using an inverter, and those LEDs will go nuts. And it is my belief of the testing I've done, the things I've seen, and the issues that I've seen, and the story behind, what might have happened right before those issues. It seems like it's not the jump starting of a car that's the issue nearly as much as it is the dying of the battery down to that lower voltage. Well, the cool thing about a power saver is it disconnects that signal. And you could use a relay, you can use a switch. People use a lot of different things. I don't think those are ideal because in most cases, myself included, one of the highlights of me going out and seeing a set of lights on my car is that when I hit the unlock button, it does something. If you're on a switch, then it won't do anything because you'd have to flip the switch to turn on the power to the lights before it will do anything when you unlock the car. If you're on a relay, depending on where you tap in, it might do something, but then it might not in other cases. That's what the power saver is. It is a relay with 3 triggers and a 4th trigger via the remote, which creates it automatic, as well as the fact they are timed triggers, so they shut off after, I think it's 15 seconds, it shuts the relay off. The reason for that, you do have an animation period, so once the DRL shuts off, you still have to flow that animation through the Ghost controller as the shut-off sequence. Your turn signals, they flash on, off, on, off, on, off. If you were to tie in the relay directly to the turn signals to get your signal, as soon as that turn signal clicks off, the relay is going to click off and you won't get the full flow of the signal. That's what the power saver comes in for, because it does have that built-in timer to keep it connected till about 15 seconds after the signal is lost. So that is a great way to extend the performance or the life of those LEDs. UCS has been rock solid. The only issues I've seen with UCS have been the solder pads getting separated from the PCB. And for the most part, it seems that is more related to the process of soldering them together. The rigid PCB don't have any flex. So a normal flex strip, you have some give where it will move within the light and you'll be okay, whereas the rigid ones, they don't. So something's got to give, and if you have flexing in the light or you have flexing in some other way, the pads seem to be the thing that wants to give. So you can work around that with different things. I like to add glue on top of all of my solder points, and that seems to help. I still use the solid pins, but I'll tell you, if you can get away with just using wire, that'll probably fix all your problems. I just find that it's harder to get them really tight doing that, and I've worked with them enough in techniques to be able to change out to you still use the pins, but to secure it in a way, I love the Gorilla Glue. I swear I'd invest in them if that was an option. Maybe it is. I don't know. I should look into that. But I buy it by the bulk. I buy a lot, and I use a lot, and I use it on everything. And it has held up really good. And I love the bond. I love the fact that it's rubbery and it has some flex to it. I think that's a lot of the success that I see with the UCS stuff is that. Whereas I do see some people, usually it's people that are newer to the rigid strips, that have those issues, and once they figure it out, and it's usually like, hey, I noticed this, what do you think it is? And I tell them, well, check this one and open up the lights, and sure enough, that's what it is. That seems to be the fix for it. Now, there's been some random other issues. I'm not going to act like there's not been any other problems, but I haven't really seen a case where any of them have burnt out. If anything, it's manufacturing defect, maybe a chip didn't quite sit right when they were soldering everything together or something like that. But for the most part, the UCS is solid. That's one of the reasons I like the UCS and I go to the UCS so much. It's not so much that it's 12 volt as much as the fact that it's just, well, it is bright. That's awesome. But it's solid. So that is a good way. So it's techniques. It's very much techniques, and that's something I try to cover in a lot of these videos is the techniques to help that better. So life expectancy, forever. They're rated for 30 to 50,000 hours, depending on which ones you go with. And theoretically, you should get that in the proper situation, but it has to be the proper situation, and that's where, I'm sure there's other things that I will learn as I go on, and I will share them with you as well, of ways that I'm not even aware of right now that can make them last even longer. But as far as now and what I've seen in my experience in the stuff that I've built, that seems to work really well, that combination. All right, what else we got here? Yes, yeah. So the Underglow one, there's a little bit less wiring, so it's still kind of the Pro controller, but there's less like the extensions. You don't have the extensions going to each light, the waterproof plugs, the cable glands, things like that. So it's only 350, and it is really cool. To me, it's like, so Underglow, you don't need a Ghost controller for Underglow. You don't. If your goal is just to show up at a show, push a button or flip a switch, and make it, run show modes or do something else, you totally do that. There's nothing wrong with that. They don't need to do anything else. Personally, the Underglow that I've installed, I've always used Blue Ghost because I have the flexibility of tying in DRLs, turn signals, brakes, reverse, any of that stuff. I have Underglow on my truck, and I trailer my car to shows, and I want people to see me. So I've got our a custom, it's not even on the website, this is by request only. We do have a video on install of it on my truck, but it is our UCS 2904 RGBW Underglow. It is not as bright as Glow Voltage V6. If you're looking for the brightest stuff on the planet, it's not that. It is bright. It does a good job. It has held up excellently since that video I did, not a single problem. And it is a solid white. It's an amazing white. It's a good white. So I've tied that in with my DRLs. So when I start my car, it does, I think it does Rainbow Road. I haven't really changed that at all. That's the startup, and it goes white. I'm driving down the road at night. I can see white shining out the side of my truck as I'm going down the road. I also have turn signals built in. If I'm trying to turn, I want you to know I'm turning. I got a trailer and a truck. I need you to know I'm coming to that next lane. Now, theoretically nobody's there, but still, I want you to know. So you can see it. Those turn signals are flowing. I've even got the back half set up for brakes. You can control zones when it comes to addressables. So you can set that back, behind the rear wheels as a zone, and you can activate the brakes for that as well as the reverse. So, I've utilized those features in my Underglow, and I think it's beneficial. Now, that being said, if you were to buy our controller built by me, you're at $350 on top of, if you're going with Glow Voltage or Glow Underglow, the V6, a $300 kit. So you're spending more on the controller than you are the kit. So I get it. It's not necessary. I'm not going to push it on anybody. You can definitely get away with the other stuff. I would say Underglow does draw a lot of power. They hold up pretty well to dead batteries, but nobody likes dead batteries. So I would put it on a switch. I would put it on a power saver. I would put it on something to disconnect it from the power when you're not needing it. But other than that, yeah, go with an SP. You can even get the Glow likes to sell the 608s and 602s, I believe. I think they call them the UFOs. And those are pretty cool because they do have those inputs as well. And because Underglow is a little bit more simple, I think those kind of do make sense to use in that way. It's not quite what Ghost is and what Ghost offers, but you do have 4 inputs, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. It's not a bad way to go. So that's definitely an option as well. I personally, I would probably go with that over a basic SP, since it's not much more money, but you do add those features. So definitely something worth looking into. Triple Threat, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining in. Make a video showing how to daisy chain addressable halos, demonize, and strips together for it all to be one channel. Yes. So that'll kind of tie in with some of the videos with builds that I want to do. I've got a new setup, in case you haven't told. The first time using this camera, and the focus is, I can see it going all over the place. Sorry, I'm gonna have to switch to manual. I think I got a new lens coming in and stuff, so I got a new setup, so I can do all this stuff on the fly. It's a pretty cool setup. I did have to drop a little bit of money on it, but I want to, post editing is involved. It does take time. It's not something I can't do, but it takes time away from everything else. So I want to be able to edit as much as I can here while I'm doing everything. So I've got a mobile camera. It's actually just a GoPro that's going to be on a HDMI hookup to my setup here, so that I can actually record wherever I'm at. If you saw the most recent one, the SRT4, that was kind of like me playing around a little bit. I had a garbage camera from my main camera, so that I got rid of that. Now I'm on a Sony Alpha, which is the quality, video quality is great. But I will be doing a lot of that, and some of this like that, where you can see me, but you can also see what I'm working on, and that's going to be a pretty big focus in the future, is the more advanced builds. But I'm kind of testing it out on some of the easier ones that I have going on, as well as trying to create content for stuff like that, like SRT4s. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who want to retrofit a set of lights, and so that would be a helpful video, I'd hope. I do have another one going on for like a Baja right now. That'll probably get a video done, so things like that. But yeah, I do want to do more videos on install builds. I've done some behind the builds videos, and you can kind of check those out, and those might give you a little bit more insight on that as well. But I think that is definitely something that we will be having more of. Yeah, white's one of them things. Was like, so my show car has glow. I've got glow V6. I don't need white on the show car because it's not driven. It is a garage queen, trailer queen. It does not drive on the road, so I don't need the white. I didn't really worry about that, but I do like the flexibility, just the cleanness of a white from an RGBW, especially like that 6K white. It just looks really good. The bluish hue that you get from RGB, and Glow has done a great job at trying to, fine-tune his probably as much as you can from an RGB setup. My UCS 2903, straight up, the white, it ain't good. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it at all, but it's bright. The output is really good, and it's generally, I only recommend it on taillights, because the only time you're running white on a taillight is in reverse, or if you're doing a white show mode or something like that. And if that is the case, if white's really important, we definitely have the UCS 2904. I wish we could push the 2904 to the level that the 2903 is, but the technology's just not there. Maybe one day it will be. There is a new chip that we have found. It's an SM type chip. I can't remember the 5 numbers that come after it right now, but we are working on that. That chipset is impressive. The kind of give you like power ratings. So the SK6812s are 12 milliamps per color. So per color is 4 colors. They're 12 milliamps each color on each LED. UCS 2904 is 17 milliamps per color. And the UCS 2903 is 24-hour version is 25 milliamps per color. And that actually has some flexibility with that package. I think it can go clear up to like 60 milliamps. But your problem, you start to have issues with heat and things. We wanted to keep it as dense as we could with 144 per meter. So we didn't push it up to those levels yet. Doesn't mean we won't in the future, because it is a UCS 2903 is a very flexible chipset, so I do like using it. But the The new one that we have found is capable up to, and there's some caveats to it at this power level, but 350 milliamps. And the chip is the same size as a UCS. So it's also about 3 times as much money. So we're going to be careful in what we use it in. I don't think anybody wants to buy any strips that are $300 a meter. But it's awesome that technology is out there now. So look for more of that stuff coming down the way. That is the chip that we will be using in the new 12-volt Demon Eyes as soon as they drop. It is the chip that is in the 5-volt Demon Eyes. It is the chip that is in the 5-volt extra right prods. And they're bright. They output well. But we did see an issue with a flicker when it's shifting between white. I think we've nailed down what that problem is, and we're going to try to resolve it, work through it. Interesting enough, it doesn't seem to do it on SP controllers. It's more so the Ghost, which is interesting. But I think we've worked through that. But yes, I do like the RGBW myself. I'm a big fan of it. I love it on the truck. I'm glad I didn't go with anything else on the truck because that white looks so good shining down as I'm driving down the road at night, coming back from a car show or something. It gets attention. People see it. People stay out of the way. And it's white on a truck. I'd never been pulled over for it. Turn signals, cop going to give you a ticket for being too noticeable on the street. It's not like anybody's mistaken me for a cop. So I've been pretty fortunate with that. Haven't had any issues. Knock on wood. Do it at your own risk. All right. What else? Potted Blue Ghost. Yes. Second, use it to unit to the control. Task lights. Yeah, absolutely. I do recommend. One of the LEDs decided to go berserk. There's 500 LEDs on the lights. I built it 2 years ago. It was my first 5mm RGB build ever, so I consider that pretty successful. But one of the LEDs went berserk. It went crazy. I turned off the taillights. I ran everything else on the car. No problem. Right, the whole show. Got home, fixed the tail, no problem. But having that separate controller gave me the flexibility of being able to do that. So I would say, for me personally, I would use a separate controller for each zone of the car. So underglow is one zone. Your taillights might be another. Your headlights would be another. I've got a trunk setup. That's another for me. So I've got 4 Ghost controllers on my car. My headliner does use a different controller because it's much more matrix based, and the Ghost is actually not superior at matrices versus some of the other options. But other than that, yeah, I have 4 Ghost and an SP based controller. 802, I can't remember offhand, but yeah, I do like to use multiple Ghosts on the same build just to help limit the issues that you might see with addressable that can come down the line. One controller for everything, not a great idea. All right, what else we got? Oh, thank you. Yes, I definitely. It feels amazing, feeling like I'm contributing, like people actually appreciate my input, And that's something that when I worked for other jobs and stuff, I was in research and development for years, and I just felt like, you contributed, your boss appreciated it, but somebody else got the pat on the back. Nobody else, you never got the appreciation for it. But I want to help. I want to, make it better. I see so many people get lights that are built wrong, and that could be a combination of things. It could be just a lack of information. It's not necessarily a bad builder. It's just nobody's. Well, I don't want to say nobody. I know some great builders that gave me a ton of tips and a ton of support, but it's just not as accessible as it probably should be. And I think that, I want to help as much as I can. I'm definitely not, the smartest builder out there, but I'm definitely willing to put the hours in to try and show people what I've learned and what I've picked up. So, I definitely appreciate it. A video on the brake trigger with the V2. Yes. I will. I'll try that. I got to try that myself. I don't know that I've tried the So I'll put it this way: I do know that the push button is still there to activate the brake as a show trigger, but I don't know what happens when you do that and you use the XT. So I don't think you can pin two different sets of show modes. I almost want to think the controller might freak out and not know what's going on, but that one's interesting. I'm gonna have to experiment myself with it and see. I'll get back with you, let you know what does happen. I'll probably mention it in a video. I mean, if it does something cool, I'll definitely show it. Blue Ghost demonstration was awesome, especially the Phantom one and the toy car underglow setup. I don't think that one was mine, but yeah, the Blue Ghost, man. Blue Ghost is where it's at. That's I think that's what really brought me into addressable, to tell you the truth. My first build had a set of Lighting Trends halos and a Blue Ghost. And when I first saw the Blue Ghost, I was like, because I had used the V5 before, and you know, I knew it pretty well, so I was confused as heck about the Blue Ghost and what the heck it was like. Wait, it does what? Like, well, how does that work? Like, I don't understand. Once I got it, it was like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. So, yes, Blue Ghost all the way. Hello, good evening to you as well. Love the product, so I'm glad, man. And definitely a lot more planned, a lot more on the horizon. You figure I've started, I would say, really developing stuff. The UCS is probably the first real development that happened. The rest was kind of like more requests of modifications of existing things. And I guess that's kind of how you have to start, because nobody really, you go to a manufacturer and you say, I want this, they usually don't really take you seriously. Maybe they'll kind of half make it for you, but they're not really going to put the effort in. So that is something that I've tried to, expand on a little bit, but definitely. What else we got here? Ghost of the World. Yes, we do. We should. Best place to get headlight DRL strips and diffuser. So I do have a video on the channel about diffusion and a few of the techniques that I've used. The problem is it's all application specific. So like, I don't have one go-to that I do all the time. I'm not a big fan of tubes. I've got like 300 meters of tubes sitting over there, and I sell them, and there's applications where I do use them, but it has to be the right application for me personally. And I've seen people use them in ways that they ended up looking really good. So it's not that tubes can never work, but I don't usually try to go to that. Well, there's other types of stuff like acrylic that I do really like to use. Especially the laser cutter right behind me. A laser cutter is an awesome tool. Once I got mine, like, it just expanded my options of what I could do. And one of those being acrylic work. Now, if you've seen the new set of lights that I built for my Forester, there's no aftermarket support for the Forester at all. So I wanted to step it up a little bit, but in a clean way, something that would look clean. So I actually designed a DRL diffuser that goes down the side. And the cool thing about a laser is I've got a file. So now that I've dialed it in, figured out what I want, I go over to the computer, I load up a file, I hit cut, and it cuts it the exact same every single time. And I've got the process down for that one. It's a little bit involved, but it's to the point where it doesn't bother me too much, but it's consistent, they look good, and I can make it look like a DRL. So you maybe check that video out, you kind of see what I'm talking about. That's a really good way. If acrylic works, I like to go with acrylic as much as I can. So I would look into that. Beyond that, we do have diffusion on a lot of strips. So we have the sequentials, we have the RGBs now. We're trying to bring more modular things to these things like switchbacks and DRLs. So you can see those strips are cuttable, resolderable, and sequential. So it gives you that flexibility. Keep in mind, we tried to keep them as tight as we could, which means you got to be real careful when you're cutting them. Try to make sure that you cut like directly on that line and be real careful, because it is easy to cut a little bit to one side or the other. I usually recommend wire dikes for cutting any of our rigid stuff. They seem to cut really well, just wire cutters. If you search wire dikes, they seem to pop up. Wire cutters, you get a bunch of random stuff. But same thing, basically, just heavy-duty ones. So we do have some on the website. Beyond that, I know Profile sells some diffuse strips as well. I think Diode Dynamics does as well. And then beyond that, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of the aftermarket world's worried about diffusion. So that's something that's kind of on us, I guess, as builders to try to figure out our workaround for it. The expectation of lifespan vary on how the lights are used, etc. Every build going to vary on lifespan. That is very much true. Very much true. Application is everything, and then just those supporting aspects. The surge suppressors do help. I would do a power saver first. That is, to me, that's a given. That's the one thing that has drastically decreased my failure rate on stuff. And it doesn't mean I don't still have failures. I do, but it's a lot less since I did that. Yes, the Galaxy build. That's the problem. I don't even have an order for one right now. I do have some Infinity Tails for a S2000. I will be doing a video on that. But I don't have anything on the horizon for that. I do want to get a set done for my personal car, but it's kind of like, it's hard to prioritize my own stuff. But if I don't get an order soon for Galaxy stuff, I may just have to bite the bullet and go ahead and do that, and then get those videos out so you guys get a better idea. I did do a behind the build on a set of Preludes that might be worth looking at, where it is that Galaxy style, but I also mixed it with rigid strips. So it's not a full build video, but it does show you how I ran everything behind the light, and that might be worth looking at. Juan, how's it going, man? Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. I had to, I got a bad battery on the truck right now. I've been limping it along, just charging it. I don't drive the truck a ton, so it sits a good bit. And before I had the power savers on there, it drained the battery a little too deep a few too many times, and it just won't. I could fully charge that battery, set it in a corner, it'll be dead in 2 weeks. So it's just, battery's shot. I got a new low voltage battery. I'm gonna try to do an install video on that, as well as like give you guys an update as I go through and see how it goes. I don't need the truck every day. It kind of sits, so I think it'll be a good candidate for it before I start pushing it on the site. I like to try to test stuff out myself before. I do have a low voltage battery in my Forester that I've been using for a little while, but that's on a standalone system, so I don't think that's really a fair comparative for like replacing your main battery in the car. I need to actually replace my main battery before I can push that. But if you're looking for a standalone battery, the low voltage batteries are great. They do get a pretty good amount of power out of them, and for the price, they hold up pretty good. And they're small. They're pretty small. I got another lithium in there that I've had for a couple years now, and that one's awesome as well, but it's like twice as big. So. Yeah. Yes, Gorilla Glue. So I prefer. I think I got one here. The Gorilla Glue contact adhesive. There we go. Clear grip contact adhesive. The cool thing about that is that it dries to a rubbery consistency that's removable. So if I can put it on a light, I can put it to hold a LED board or something like that. If I need to go back later and remove that board, it just pulls off almost like Plasti-Tack or something. It's not. It's a great bond. It's not going to shake free on a car, but it's easy enough to remove if you need to at some point pull it out and replace a strip or something like that. You can do it. The only downside is it does take a little bit to dry. And a lot of times, if I'm tight on time or something, I can use the CA glue to sort of tack weld. Just put little dabs of the CA glue just to hold the strip or whatever you're doing in place, and then go back over it with this liberally to create that shock-proof bond. It's nice because it does have some flex to it, and I think that's the thing that really drew me to it. I'm not quite as big of a fan of shoe goo. A lot of people like to use that. I just kind of prefer this stuff. I think it works better. Diamond Lightworks, how's it going, man? Cobalt SS. Oh, I've done a few of those in my days. They are fun. I don't know what it is about the Cobalts. I've probably had more problems with Cobalts than any other light. They like to leak. I'll tell you that. They really do like to leak. You make sure that whatever sets you use, you put the screws in. I got a video on that as well, where I'll add the screws to hold it together. It seems like the aftermarket lights for them, they don't like to hold together very well. I think that's why they switched to Permaseal on a lot of them. If you get the Anzo lights, they are beautiful, so they're a little easier to open. They do cost a little bit more, but it's going to save you time. But definitely screw those things shut, because I learned a lot of lessons on Cobalts. I don't build Cobalts anymore, for the record. it was a lot. But yeah, Cobalts, man. Ghost V2, yeah. Yeah, the V2 was a needed upgrade. I really did like what they did with that. They brought in the reverse, and then they added the EXT so you don't have to use the brake. And I think that just kind of cemented it as being the best automotive controller on the market by having those two extra features added in. And I do like a lot of the ideas that they've had. I'm not going to give any of that stuff away, but Dan's bounced some ideas off me that sound really exciting. So definitely looking forward to what they bring to the table. Kyle is a very capable person. He's the main programmer, and Dan is a smart dude. So definitely like what they're bringing to the table. I lost my place. Here we go. Oh my god. UFO is nice, man. I'll say for the cost, for the price, it's hard to beat. I think the Ghost, if it was the same price, edges it out. But it's not the same price. You have to factor that in. You have to figure it out. I've got 200 Ghost controllers in the other room, so for me it doesn't make sense not to use it. But at the same point, I wouldn't knock somebody for not using the Ghost. I would just say, except that you don't have the superior controller. I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's just the UFO is great, but it's not the Ghost. But it's perfectly fine for underglow. I don't think you need more than that. So, just gotta figure out which one is best for your application and what you want to run. Least favorite thing to build. Uh, Man, I got to stick with the Cobalts. Gosh, it jumped on me. I lost my place. Where the heck was I? Oh, there we are. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna stick with Cobalts. Those are not fun. But there's been a lot of lights over the years that are just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Why do I still build it? But I do like building. I really do enjoy building lights and stuff, especially if if you get flexibility in what you want to do. I think it's what we do is kind of like an art. So it sucks when the customer like knows exactly what they want. Sometimes it kind of sucks because it's like you'll get the lights and you'll open up and you'll be like, oh my god, this would have been so much better. And usually I'll bounce it off the customer. I'll be like, hey, this will look dope. I'll pay for it. I don't care. I want to do it. And they're usually like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do that. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's do it. But probably Cobalts. There's just I left a bad taste in my mouth. All the issues that I had, and this was earlier on. This was one of the first builds that I did that wasn't a Forester. I started with the Foresters and kind of branched out from there. And the Cobalt was one of the first guys that hit me up. It was like, hey, can you build for a Cobalt? And I did. So it was early on. If I tried again, I probably wouldn't have as many issues, but it's just left a bad taste in my mouth. I just can't do it anymore. Yeah, I do want to do it behind the scenes in general, the whole basement shop. Like, I think a lot of people think I've got like this big warehouse with a bunch of employees and stuff, and I really don't. It's just me. My wife does help with the accounting and bookkeeping because she's way better at that than me. But like everything else, web development, all that stuff, that's all me. So it's kind of small scale. It's kind of that like this is not lighting trends. We're very small here, but I do the most with what I have, and this YouTube setup's pretty dope. Definitely worth showing at some point. Got to clean up a little bit down here before I do any of that, but I do want to do a little bit of a short tour. Won't be very long, but yeah, definitely. The dimensions of the Glow Challenger kit. Uh, I'm gonna have to double check that. So on some of those kits, they already had them measured out, and I just trust their measurements on them rather than me getting the measurements myself. So I'll have to reach out to Glow and see what the exact measurements are on that kit. I'm not sure. Yeah, they might. I don't think they do. I don't think they have the dimensions written down. But yeah, shoot Glow a message. He'll definitely tell you. Yeah, I wouldn't do the one controller for everything. I think I touched on that a little bit earlier, probably after you posted that. But I wouldn't do one controller for everything. Yeah, the Blue Ghost does have a limit to the LED count, which kind of sucks. Most headlights, that's not a big issue. Most underglow, that's not really a big issue. If you were doing a whole bunch of stuff, you would have an issue. Galaxy tails, that can be an issue. So definitely keep that in mind. If you're doing very big builds, you're gonna have to plan that ahead. That's gonna be part of that video that I do is talking about the limit because you will very frequently hit that 350. Well, 450. It's like 375. Because if you turn on fast mode, then you get that extra like 75 LEDs. But there's not a lot of LEDs that work in fast mode, so you got to keep that in mind. But yeah, you can use multiple ghosts to kind of work around that if you need to. I haven't had to do that yet. I usually work with the tail light, and that's something I will go over when I finally get a chance to do a video on that. The headliner, yes, I love that headliner. There's one I don't want to ever do again. I no, straight up. I'll show it at shows, and I get a lot of people that'll be like, "Oh my god, I want your headliner. Your headliner's awesome." And I'll be like, "Well, I sell the kits. And I got a video showing you how to do it." And they're like, "How much if you do it?" And I'm like 20 grand. I'm like, I do not want to do another one. It was a ton of work, a ton of work. And if you have a problem, something goes wrong, you've got to pull that headliner back down. I haven't had to, but like that's just a nightmare. I don't want to go down that road again. But I'm glad I did it because it was really cool, and we obviously developed those LEDs, and then added the casings for it. That's a custom mold that we designed. So it's something else. What the heck? I think it's back. All right. Oh yeah, what else we got? Oh yeah, I mean cops will give you trouble if they can, but that's kind of like, if you're getting the right cop, they'll pull you over for any reason they want, and there ain't nothing you're gonna do about it. I'm not saying that you definitely should run with everything crazy all the time, but I've had it on the truck, and I've driven as far north as Connecticut and as far south as Tennessee, and I haven't been pulled over for it. So, knock on wood, I've been pretty lucky. I'm also not driving, something flashy. It's a truck with a trailer. I don't think cops usually give you too much grief unless you look like you might be up to something. And the car, when I say up to something, it's profiling. I mean, that's how it goes a lot of times. On a truck, it doesn't seem like they want to profile the trucks as much. Ah, the taillights, yes. Definitely glad I could help out with any of that stuff. Ah, the black RGBAW halos. Okay, so the black halos, one of the biggest issues with those is that they make the halos far less bright. It's like adding sunglasses to your halos. It's not good. I don't want to sell it because, quite honestly, it's just unimpressively bright. It's not bright. It does not look great. It looks great when it's off. That's the point of them. They look good off. But, most of us are trying to have it look good when it's on. And so I don't really want to get into those. I have toyed with tint spray on halos, and you get kind of the same effect. So if that's something you want to play with, try that. Get some tint spray, some spray can of tint spray, and just lightly coat the halos. Light coats, let it dry. Light coat, let it dry. Light coat, let it dry. Get it to where you want it, blackwise. You're gonna get the same effect. Another thing is you're going to lose that clean white color. It'll have more of a yellowish hue to it. So some things to keep in mind, but if you want to experiment with it, try that tint spray on the halo and you'll get that effect. Yeah, you definitely can play around with the colors on the DRLs and stuff, but you want to be careful. Now, that same truck, I run green DRLs, and that's been from Connecticut all the way down as far as Tennessee, and never been pulled over. But that's also green. Some people venture into the reds and blues. I don't know that's a great idea, but to each his own. And you definitely give it a shot if you want. Yeah, if you feel lucky, that's you. That's what I say. Like I tell people all the time, like you can do that. You can change your turn signals if you want to whatever color you want. but you assume all liability in the case that you do that. I don't. I don't do that. I run amber turns, and I mean, my main car, I've got white DRLs right now and an amber eyebrow. I think it looks good, and it's not real ballsy. The truck, I do run green. Haven't had a problem yet. But I feel like my daily it's a legacy, a little sportier looking. I think it's probably a little more likely to be profiled. Not that I have been in it because it's still a family car, but the truck, like, dude, cops don't care about your truck. So, yeah. Depends what you're driving, but definitely just be prepared that if you get pulled over, you know, yeah. The laser cutter. Okay, so my laser cutter is a BMO. It was about $1,600 when I got it. Now they're like 25. And you can get an OhmTech, but the biggest thing about my BMO that I love is that it has a built-in camera. The support is great. The build quality is great. I have a ton of hours on that thing. It's probably past 200 hours of cut time. And aside from changing water out on it, nothing's gone bad, knock on wood. But I do like that camera, that laser cutter. It's very nice laser cutter. So the BMO I recommend. The Glowforge is another one. It's a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit more expensive, like $5,000. But I think for like an entry level, if you want an entry level and you want a good experience, I would say go with the BMO. If you want something cheaper and you're okay having to toy through it, figure out your process, the OhmTechs are good lasers. I just don't like the lack of the camera. That just kills it for me. I'll pay hundreds more to get that camera because I can maximize the amount of, like, I can go at, like, if you want to etch lenses, I have a video on that, how I etch lenses using the laser, and that gives me 3-dimensional depth to my etches. You cannot do that on an OhmTech because you're not going to be able to line up that image directly on the lens. You can't put a product into a laser cutter without a camera and get it perfect for what you're going to laser etch. So I do like it with a camera. If it doesn't have a camera, honestly, I'm not going to buy it. Now, like, I got a water jet. It doesn't have a camera, but it's different. Like, I don't think water jets have cameras generally, so you kind of have to work around that. So, I mean, I would say, like, I have that experience of a CNC machine, cutting machine, that doesn't have a camera and the one that does, and, like, I love this. This was $1,600. The water jet was $10,000, and it's great because it cuts metal, and this does not. But, like, I'll use this if I can 10 times over that for sure. So, I don't think I'd ever buy an OhmTech because of that. But quality-wise, I know guys that have them, and they're good quality. You do have to add some things, like you're going to want to water cooling system of some kind because they're not built in like the BMOs are. I know a guy that's got one, and his laser went out after like 50 hours or something. It wasn't much, and the laser went out. He'd replace it. It's cheap parts, but, you know, do you want to spend the time to replace them all and stuff? Yeah, to kind of make up your mind on that. I think for me, I've kind of learned that, especially with what I'm doing, if I spend more money and it costs me less time, I'd rather do it. 3D printers. I got 3D printers around here. I just got rid of a Creality. I didn't like all the fiddling that you have to do on them. You know, a lot of people love them. A lot of people get them. A lot of people have no problems. They know exactly what to do. They do it. It works great. They change out the main boards and change out these parts and that parts, and they got a freaking race car 3D printer. I didn't want that. I just want plug and play. I ended up going with the Flash Forge here because it was a dual color, and I thought it was pretty good. Now, if I get back into 3D printing harder, I'm going to like a Bamboo or something like that. Like, I'm going high level entry, not like pro $4,000 or $5,000 deals, but like good entry level printers, like $1,000, something like that. I just want it to work. I just want to use it, say cut, print, whatever, and it does it. And the BMO is great. It does that. I like it. I'd get a Glowforge too. I've heard really good things about them. I've seen the reviews. If I do ever get another laser, it will be a bigger one. That's one downside to the BMO. It's like 8.5 by 12. But I think they're like $2,200 right now. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them direct from BMO. But they've also got a beam box, and that's more. That's bigger, and it does cost more money. But that's available. Yeah. Yeah, 3D printer. And then up above me, and you can't see it, but I've got resin printers. Resin printers are pretty dope if you want a clean finish. But they're messy. It costs more per print. And surprisingly, what I've learned over time, they don't hold up as well. So a lot of the brackets that I was making for the Demon Eyes, I was using resin. And to start, they were really good. But for one, they were a little bit brittle if you were not careful. I had to play with a lot of different resins to find one that worked well and held the heat well. But the finish is amazing of what you can get from a resin printer. So I'm kind of torn. I have 2 resin printers and I have 1 regular printer. This one is actually a dual-headed, dual-color printer. So I can actually clone print, which means I can print 2 items at a time, identical. I can do 2 color prints where it will change heads. So that's pretty cool. The software's pretty good, and FlashForge is great. Little like entry level deal. That thing was like $600. It wasn't bad. But like I said, Bambu. I think I'm gonna step it up on the next one. Yeah, yeah. You probably could. I don't. I think I've seen Galaxy Tails on a S550. I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I haven't done Mustangs myself. Not tails. I've done heads, but not tails yet. But yeah, you probably could. Oh no, yeah, you can definitely control multiple Blue Ghost controllers with one app. I have 4 on my show car, and all of them I can connect at the same time. When I go to a car show, I'll have as much as 9 sets of lights on a table. I can connect to every one of them and start them all up in the same app with one button. There's a option to multicast, single cast. It's up in the top corner on the show page, I believe, and you can actually individually control or not. If you have them all connected and you're doing single, at the bottom of the screen, there's actually a little indicator box that tells you which controller you're connected to. So you can switch on the fly between each one and control individually, or you can do that multicast where you're telling all of them to do the same thing. So yeah, you could definitely use one app to control a ton of Blue Ghosts. I don't even know what the limit is. I've seen a ton pop up, and I've connected to a ton. So a lot. Ah, yeah, yeah. Jay over at Sinister, man, good guy. ZX14. I know he did one recently with the Star Wars themed. Used the Imperial Halos. It looked pretty cool. Had the little grill thing behind it that looked really cool. Might have been yours. I don't know if it was or not. Yep, definitely can have multiple with one app. That is one cool thing about the Ghost. Yeah, definitely, man. Get those lights knocked out here soon. I, Maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm not like by any means the greatest builder out there, so it's totally possible. I think it's more technique based than anything. I will say parts. Not to toot my own horn, but I've put a lot of invested a lot of money and a lot of time into developing parts that do not exist. If you're not getting them from me, you're not getting them. Now, that doesn't mean everything. There's other parts out there that are really good, but some stuff like UCS wise, I don't think a lot of people are using UCS, and I think it's kind of a mistake. I think UCS is like the brighter stuff, the more reliable stuff. So, hey man, it's totally possible. 6061. I don't recognize it offhand, but dude, he could be using my stuff. Maybe he's I don't know, using really good stuff, making really good products. Totally, there's people buying parts from me that blow me away with what they know and their knowledge and stuff. They just don't want to get into parts development. So it's totally possible. Yeah. I've never wrapped a halo. That's interesting. But Vivid's pretty good because it's not a dark tint. It's like a really light tint. I've got them on my taillights, and I mean, I pass inspection and everything, but I went with the Hex, so it was like really, really light tint. It wasn't bad. Yeah, you're lucky. Most cops, the ones that want to pull you over and give you trouble, they insist they know everything, even if they don't. So you lucked out there. But most of the cops don't care, man. They just keep rolling right on by. They don't hassle me. Yeah, I mean, the last time I got pulled over, I wasn't even speeding, but there's another cop, man, just trying to show how cool he was. Yeah, I haven't had issues with the green. I do think it is somewhat related to whether or not it's an emergency vehicle color. So you definitely want to stay away from that. In Virginia, cops only use blue. They don't even use red. So I do run red Demon Eyes on my car. Haven't had a problem. Not saying that every state you should do that. I generally recommend if you're in a state to stay away from cop colors because they seem to get really upset when you use their colors. So don't do that. Oh, water jet numbers. Okay. I am not super smart on this. I want to say 14,000 psi. I have a Wazer. That might be easier. Search Wazer. It's a table side water jet. I got it mainly for brackets because I just want to be able to fabricate everything myself here quickly. I don't really like having to outsource stuff because I do find that a lot of people get busy, man, and you want something to get done and you send it out to somebody else like, hey, I need a bracket for a headlight, and it doesn't exist. CBD brackets, great company. They do some really good stuff, but they don't make everything. And so sometimes I want something specific and I want it quick. And I've figured out the process well enough now after playing a good bit where I can knock it out fast. I can knock out pretty quick a set of brackets for a light. And if I need to tweak it, no big deal. I throw a new design in there and hit cut, and it goes to town and it does it, and it's really cool. I made some cool little Pokemon layered metal stuff for the kids. That was pretty cool. Little way to break in the machine and try to figure it out, and those turned out great. So Christmas is coming up. Maybe make some metal Christmas gifts for some people, but it's pretty cool. I'll say that if I ever get to the point where I have a bigger workspace, I think the next time I'm just going to get a plasma cutter table with the CNC plasma cutter. It's faster and it can cut steel better. I'm using aluminum because the water jet, it takes a bit to cut. But I am using ruby. Ruby's garnet. I'm using garnet. I get it direct from Wazer by the pallet, It's like the only way to, it's like $2,200 for a pallet, but it'll last me a very long time. And when I was pricing out like per bag, like, no, you got to buy that by like the truck shipment, or else it's just stupid expensive per bag. And no idea on the tip. Oh gosh, man, you're asking me questions. I don't. I don't. I did enough research to know that like it was in the price point that I wanted. I did like the benefits of a water jet, being that it is a cleaner cut than what you might get with the plasma table. Hindsight, I don't regret it, but I'm really curious if I were to have had a plasma table next to it. If I had both right now, I don't know which one I'd like more. I do like the idea of a plasma jet or a plasma cutter table. So I get a bigger shop. The plan is at some point we're going to move and try to get somewhere with a little bit more land so I can actually open up a shop detached. I don't want to get a shop. I don't want to go away from the house and be strapped. I'm here right now at like 11:30 at night talking to you guys. I can't do that if I'm at a shop. I don't want that to be strapped like that. I don't want to be, normally when I'm working down here, if the wife or the kids need something, I can stop, go help them, come back. She makes dinner, I eat, spend a little bit of time with the kids, come back down. I love that flexibility, and I'm never going to get that if I have a shop. So I do want the benefits of a shop, but I want it like next to my house. So that's like a future plan, and when that happens, I will more than likely get a plasma table, because those do look pretty darn cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Wrapping halos, it seems like a difficult job. Like I would almost feel like it would want to peel, but maybe not. I'm also really bad at wrap. I straight up paint and wrap. Like I can paint a headlight. That's easy enough. It's small. But like cars, I wouldn't even attempt to paint a car. Wrapping, I don't even like wrapping lights. It's I'm not good at it. That's the cool thing about custom and what we do. We can do stuff that nobody else does, and kind of make it our own. Now, obviously, the more you share your unique, one of a kind creation, the more likely it is somebody will try to knock it off or have the same thing created. But that flexibility of creating something that's one of one. And that's what I try to tell a lot of people. Some people at shows will be a little bit sticker shocked with price point of where we're at. But what we do is art. And yes, I do get some cars where the lights cost more than the car. That's It's still custom work. It's still one of a kind. It's still unique. And a lot of times the value of the car is kind of more set by you than it is by MSRP. The NADA KBB value. I got a $7,000 Forester with 80 grand on stuff all over it. So whatever. I like the car. It's not going anywhere. Something happens to it aside from getting plastered by a semi on the highway, it's going to be fixed and it'll get back on the road. So that is what it is. So Glow uses SP 608 and 602, and it's just very different in how it works. Like you do have the inputs, but you only have four. Either one, the 602 or the 608. 608 is the one they call the UFO, the big one. The patterns are different. It's just really different. It's kind of hard to compare them to. Like, so one really cool thing about Blue Ghost plays left channel to right channel. There is not a right or left channel on the SP controllers. There are 4 or 8 outputs depending on which one that you get, but there's certain show modes on the Ghost where the light will go from one side of the car to the other side of the car and then back, and then it'll play with itself. You're not going to get that with an SP controller. That doesn't mean that the SP is not a solid option for what you're doing, but yeah, comparing the two, they're different. So it's kind of hard to compare. I would say the biggest, just when it comes down to it, Ghost beats SP every time except for price. They don't beat it for price. And a headliner. I don't use a Ghost on the headliner, but that's a very different SP controller. It's Wi-Fi. It's not even Bluetooth. But the controller I used really good. I think it's like 8.0. Gosh, the numbers are so hard to freaking remember what's what. Yeah, and NTX Glow, man, he's got a huge following. So I can't. I mean, I'm a little jealous myself. I wish my following was on his level, but you know, he's worked hard at it, and he's got a pretty good following. He does some pretty cool stuff, but yeah, I mean, some of the stuff. Just talking to like Jay Sinister, like some of the builds that he's done that you wouldn't even realize that he's done them in the past, just because he doesn't advertise as much because he stays so busy. I don't think he's really looking for the publicity and the extra work that it would bring. So he's just kind of keeping his head down and just working his butt off. I mean, he's been in the industry so long that I think he's kind of just developed that name. He doesn't need social media to push his product. He does quite all right, just word of mouth. But I mean, he's done everything. So if I have a question about a car, I can usually hit him up and be like, "Oh yeah, it's this," and I'm like, "How the heck did you remember that?" I don't. Yeah, I don't know why. I cannot understand why no one else has jumped on the UCS board. The only one that's come close is GTR up in Canada. And I mean, it was a pretty short stint. I have heard that Unique is going to be getting into UCS, but I haven't seen anything since I think he announced it like last year sometime. I haven't seen anything yet, but I have heard he's going to do something. So I'm really curious because he does some really creative stuff. And I've gotten really close to carrying some of his stuff on the site, but I'm really much more of an addressable kind of guy, and so I hesitate carrying his like dual color stuff, his pods and things, because I don't know that I would be able to sell them. If that's something you guys are interested in, I would be more than happy to buy some inventory and have it on hand to sell to you guys. But I feel like most people overlook me when it comes to single color, dual color, switchback, RGB. It's kind of like the Neo guy. So I haven't really messed with it, but I am curious to see when he drops some new stuff with the addressable, especially UCS. Yeah, blue and white. I think a lot of times they tie them with the DRLs and they make them like WizWag for the headlights. As you notice, a lot of cop cars don't have any red or blue or anything like that in the headlights. It's usually like light bars or something behind the grill. Like they kind of go simplified on the lighting install. So the headlights, they tie in with the white and then a little WizWag back and forth. You get little controllers and tie in with the DRLs to make it do that. So I think they're kind of throwing them together as quick as they can to get the lights and stuff. So yeah, but the red's interesting how they don't. Some states use it, some don't. I guess the blue's enough to get your attention. Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing. Just stay away from the PD colors. Glue, okay. Oh, well that wouldn't be good. So you have to replace that? The wrap? Huh. Okay. Yeah, waterproofing maybe. I don't know if you like 2K clear over top of it. Maybe try the tent. Try that tent spray. It sort of worked. If you got an extra halo or something that you can try, it sort of worked. The hard part is just getting a really light tint to it. Can be a little less forgiving. I kind of prefer Rust-Oleum. I think it lays down a little bit better. I swear by VHT for a lot of stuff when it comes to rattle can paint, but not their tint. I don't like their tint. It goes down way too thick. I think Rust-Oleum, they got better nozzles or something on them. And you can get a pack of nozzles. You get like for graffiti artists and stuff, you can get like different nozzle tips and stuff that'll change that out. So you could even look into that possibly. Laminex. I kind of felt like the stuff that you were using, I can't remember, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've used that. I feel like it had some healing properties to it. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess in the sun long enough. I mean, I've had them on my taillights for a while, and so far I haven't seen any cracking or peeling or anything. Yeah, yeah, he is the grandfather, man. He's been doing it. Him and Luke Jensen. Of course, Luke is now just Tesla's, but he's been around a long time. Flyride, everybody knows him. Been around a long time, but I think he's kind of bowed out. I think he's found some bigger ventures, so good for him. But he was doing it for a long time too. Yeah, yeah. Jay was a big part of getting me into what I'm doing right now with the parts and development and things like that. And I think when I first got into it, I wasn't focused on making any money, like profit. And I use that term loosely, making money. I actually haven't taken a paycheck yet. I don't need to. The wife is able to pay the bills, and we live modestly. We don't need to, do anything super crazy. But my main focus has been growth of the business. And quite honestly, if I didn't have the margins that I have now, there wouldn't be much at all in development. It's just kind of the way things go. Everything costs money. Development costs money. New stuff costs money. Warranties cost money. Everything costs money. So Jay was a big part of encouraging me to charge a proper price. And I don't want to gouge anybody by any means. I don't want to jack the prices up on stuff. So I do try to keep it as low as I can. But at the same point, this is paying for the development of new products and new stuff. It's for me, a lot of it is about that expansion stuff and the ability to call up my manufacturers, and they know if I want something done, it's going to get paid for. If I want something done, I'm going to buy it. And that goes a long way, man. We can develop stuff. The LEDs that we developed, they said they had thought about doing them in the past, but people didn't want them, and they didn't think they'd be able to sell them for the extra cost and the stuff that's involved. It's because of us and what we're doing, the development. And I say us, I mean me and you guys, the people that are supporting my products, supporting the stuff that we're developing. And that's, once again, that's a lot of what this video is for, is what you guys want to see more of parts-wise, good ideas. And, some ideas, I'll let you know when you tell me it may not make sense. There might be some stuff that's like custom boards for a lot of cars. You'd be surprised how bad custom size boards sell here, and I don't know what the reasoning is. Maybe I'm just not advertising enough. I got my K5 boards. I've sold like 3 or 4 sets. They blow the pants off of anybody else's K5 boards, but they just don't sell like everybody else. And so I don't know if it's just the cost difference. People don't understand why UCS is better than WS2812s, which I'm pretty sure some of the other brands are using. But, and I've actually given away 2 free sets now to try and get a little bit more knowledge about the boards out there. So, I don't know, we'll see if that takes off. But there you go. It's just another example where it costs money, man. To get all this stuff out there, to get it developed, get it pushed, it costs money. So, Jay was a big part of that. Jay's a good guy. I talk to him probably every week. Of course, he probably talks to everybody every week. Yeah. So I was selling the flexible 8 mil UCS strips. Those were made by the exact same people that made the ones for GTR. Um, Now he's the one that got them to make it, so absolutely nothing against him at all. Just had a lot of requests for him, and him being in Canada, I don't think a lot of people wanted to deal with ordering from Canada, so I did get them in, but I wasn't overly happy with them. For one, there's an LED package combo with UCS, so UCS is a chip. It's an IC on the back of my rigid strips. You'll see it, and that drives the LEDs. Now, what LEDs you want it to drive is up to you. And we had developed some fairly early on. We developed some higher output ones that had a really good color to them, and now we actually have even better ones that just finished getting developed. They are on some products that I have coming in next week. Those will actually be my replacement for the ones that I was selling from the same company that GTR was getting them from, and it'll move me in the right direction. I bought one batch from that company, and then they sold slowly. But one thing, the price point wasn't great for what it was, like 124-inch strip. Price-wise, it was more than my rigid stuff. So now we're moving over to the same people that make my rigid stuff are going to be making my flexible UCS, semi-flexible UCS. They're the same guys that make my UCS 2903 Infinity Mirror strips as well. Their quality is top-notch, so I like them. I like to stick with them as much as I can. But sometimes new products come to market and anybody can get them. I had to jump on it. I had to start selling them. But now we're jumping back into our own version of them because there were some drawbacks that I didn't really like about those. I'm almost wondering the heat in those halos is causing you a lot of those issues. I don't think the wrap should crack. I think there's more to it than that, and it's probably the heat from those halos. And I don't know, man. I would almost still say the paint. I would almost try the paint and see. Smoke diffusers, plastic, they probably hold up better. Well, no issues. That's good. I mean, theoretically it's tested on halos, so it should hold up, I would think. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, he kind of bowed out last year. Like I kind of look at. I'd be 100% honest with you. I look at a lot of his videos to kind of see how stuff goes. I watched one of his live streams before I did this because I was thinking like, what the heck do I do if there's no comments or nothing? Like I don't friggin' know. And I've watched a lot of his videos. But I think he's one of the ones too where it's like he covered on like all the old school stuff really well, and he helped me get where I am today and a lot of the stuff. But addressable stuff he didn't go into much detail on. He didn't really cover it a whole lot, and that's where I'm trying to kind of like pick that up because obviously his videos are still online, and I mean they're gonna get way more views than any of my stuff ever will. But I want to kind of touch the things that he's not, like ACZ car style, I think it is. I mean that dude's impressive as heck. I've watched his videos too. He does some crazy stuff that it's like, how do you come up with this stuff and then cut it all by hand? And that's why I got the laser cutter. Like, do it by hand, and turns out freaking amazing. And I'm just like, it can't look that good in person because that is amazing. Like, but it probably does. But yeah, that dude, I mean, like, good, 700 and some thousand followers. That dude, Yeah, that's aspirations. I'll never hit that number. Yeah, crypto juice. Well, okay, that makes sense. Diode makes great stuff. I mean, I wish they made more. Obviously, they know their market. They know what they need to do. They need to know what they need to make to be successful. So I'm not going to knock what they do or don't make. But what they do make, they make well. So Diode has never been a company I've had an issue with. I'll say that. I've some other companies that I'm not going to mention, but that I probably wouldn't reuse their stuff. But Diode ain't one of them. Diode does really good stuff. I'm bummed out. We went to St. Louis this summer, and of course I had the wife and kids and stuff, so we we didn't go to see Diode Dynamics, but it was just me. I totally would have gone. I would have wanted to go in there and see it, see the shop. NTFTs. Yeah, so I don't know jack about that. I know a little bit about crypto. I've seen a couple documentaries on YouTube, but I don't know much about that. NTFTs, I know even less about that. I got way too much other stuff to occupy my time than researching that stuff. Yeah, yeah, Jay's great, man. Yeah, I've never met him in person because he's just far enough away, and I've never really gone that far south. I mean, I lived in Mississippi for a few years, but I mean, like since I've been doing this, I haven't really gone that far. So yeah, one day I'll meet up with Jay, but he's just far enough away that it ain't gonna be a random day trip like Dan. I mean, an hour and a half away. That's nothing. Yeah, yeah, it's a cost difference. I think that's where it comes down to. So I do have the video on the channel about purchasing lights. It's something that I actually have as my pop up on my Bragging Lights website. So when you go in there, the first thing that pops up is that video, a link to that video saying like, what should you look for when you're buying a set of retrofits? And I try to go over in detail. It's not my goal to convince somebody that they need to go with me. With that video, my goal is to convince somebody to make sure whoever they go with is using good stuff and to tell them what good stuff is in the hopes that they will avoid some of the garbage that a lot of builders are pushing out just so they can get the lowest price. And it's usually not lower by much. If they can beat you by $40, some people think, oh, well, a light's a light. $40 is great. Or a lot of people think, oh, I don't need that. I was like, if it's only like $100 more, I think you're going to regret not doing it. We're already talking about an expensive thing with custom lights. Spend it right, do it right the first time. So, yeah, people come and go, honestly. People hit you up, say they want something and don't want to pay for it. Whatever. I don't sweat it too bad. Illumisthetic. I mean, their single color stuff's great. I we have our own line now of single color stuff, and it kind of edges theirs out just slightly, but it's kind of hard to say that it's brighter. It's marginally bright. It's barely brighter. You probably can't even tell. Illumisthetic is good, and I do like their kits, but they're getting out of it now. So, they're trying to sell that side of the business. I don't know if they found a buyer, but I think their days are kind of numbered in that because now they're doing like body work, body kits, and it's like 100. I think I saw spent like 100 grand on some mold or something like. So yeah, they're in a whole other league now. So they they're kind of getting out of it. So yeah, and I will say their RGB I don't recommend because they don't have capacitors built in. So if you're getting their RGB 5 mil, I mean I'm not gonna tell anybody definitely don't, but like personally I wouldn't because you're gonna have to add a lot of capacitors to make them work. So I would probably, I would go with the ones we developed. I don't know of anybody else that's putting capacitors in the 5 mils, and I don't think a lot of people, like, they don't advertise it well. So if you're looking around, you probably won't know necessarily. I don't know of anyone that is. I know of a lot of people that have hit me up after watching my video saying they're having issues, and 9 times out of 10, they got the LEDs, or really 10 times out of 10, they got the LEDs from Illumistic and from other companies. And Illumistic says straight on their website, like, you need to know what you're doing if you're playing with these LEDs. Like, it's involved. They've wanted to put a video together, but, they haven't had the time. So nothing against Illumistic at all in that aspect. But, as a builder, if you're trying to get somewhat of a seamless problem-free install, I wouldn't use Illumistic's RGB. But their single color stuff, yeah, all day. Don't worry about it. Their stuff's good. Holds up great. Yeah, the new Demonize. The 12 volt, they're going to look good. Like, I have demos here that are pretty dope. But they're not using, like, the newer. So, like, we're using a Cree LED. It's an RGBW LED made by Cree. It's a 50/50, so it's really small. And I have versions here that are the XML1. They just call it XML. We purchased about 1,000 XML2s. Now, this is another example. So 1,000 of them was like $8,000. So, there you go. That's where your money goes. You buy parts from me, it goes to 8,000 LEDs or 1,000 LEDs for $8,000. But they are brighter, almost twice, up to twice as bright. Now, it's all in how much we push it. So we got to find the right LED. And the way that we're developing, we're using something called expanded current, where you take an IC driver, and maybe it's a smaller one. Originally, we were looking at the UCS 2904, and that's what we were designing it over, which is a 17 milliamp LED. And we were going to push it up to about 350 milliamps using this process of expanded current. And that's what we were using on the other ones. So we were kind of like mimicking that, but fixing the issues. And then we found this new SM, which can push 150 up to 350, but it's 350 limited because it's 350 collectively across all colors. And so it doesn't really run 350 if you're mixing colors. And so it's not ideal. So we got to run 150 to be ideal on that. So it'll be about 150, but that's still almost 10 times as much as the UCS. So that'll help. And then expanded current to push beyond that is the plan. And we're working on that right now. I've got my engineers working on that hard. We're also adding in the shut-off 12-volt source, so you wire that into your projector, and it will shut that demon eye off. So that's another benefit coming down the road. We want to do it right. I don't want to push it. I don't want to rush it. Currently, I'm using UCS strips for most of my demon eyes. I've done some with the 5-volt stuff, and the 5-volt stuff is really cool because it's small, compact, it fits well. But if you run a couple strips of like UCS in there, if you can fit them in there, that does well too. So that's like my 12-volt stuff. That's how I go. But we do have the 5-volt stuff too, if you want to check it out. And the 12-volt stuff, I'm excited. It'll be good. And yeah, semi-flexible UCS on the way. We are also developing a UCS 2904 version of the Infinity Mirror strips. So we'll get them both. The 2903s turned out so well, it was like, all right, we just go ahead and do the RGBW ones as well. But I was definitely, if it's a taillight, if you can get away with not having that really good white, the 2903s are the way to go. But I will have the 2904s. I'm actually doing a set of headlights myself with infinity mirrors on them, so the RGBW is kind of a must. If I get them before I finish the lights, I'll probably swap it out. Right now I got the SKs in there, which is fine because it's not like a main function light. This is more like a show lights, so it's fine if I don't, but if I get them in, I'm going to swap that out. Yeah. So I'm using a lot more AI now. to try to come up with better titles and better names and things, a little bit clickbaity. But I also don't want to like lie, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like the fine line. I don't. I want people to watch because they want to watch, because they feel like they're taking something away, and not chase the YouTube algorithm dollar number thing. I'm in a very tight demographic here. There's not a lot of people like looking to do what we do. So I'm never going to be, an influencer or something like that. It is what it is. I'm not worried about that, but I do use AI because it makes my life easier, and that, like I said, is very important. If anything that I can do to shorten my involvement and stuff, I'll do it. So that's a great example. Yeah. Yeah, no, he did great. It was a shame to see him kind of bow out, but I can't knock him because I know he didn't. He's moved on to better stuff, so I can't knock it. Yeah, yeah, he was starting to get into addressable more, but you could tell he was very new to it. But he definitely was. We talked a little bit. I sent him some stuff, but I don't think he ever got a chance to check it out. But this was early, very early on, so it's not like I sent him like really, really good stuff. Yeah, Diodynamics is in right outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Their headquarters. So kind of missed out that opportunity to check the shop out when I was out there. Yeah, AZ. Yeah, they probably don't speak English, but like every once in a while they do some really cool stuff over there. Yeah, how's it going, man? It's just it's been kind of just keep going, but I'm good with this. Yeah, there's no problem with that. We keep it going. Best way to use the interior amber light kit with the Blue Ghost. Yeah, so you wouldn't use the boxes. It is 5 volts, so you're gonna want to keep that in mind. You gotta change the plugs out, and the wiring. I did it once. I can't remember the color. The colors don't make. They're not right. Like red is power. The other two are like flipped. I want to say yellow was ground, and black was data. I did it one time to put it on a Ghost controller for somebody. I'm trying to remember, and I remember I did it wrong, and I fried the first LED, so I had to cut it. So if you do that, add a JST, and it doesn't fire up, there's a very good chance that you fried the first LED on the strip. So you have to cut it out and then solder, and it is hard to solder on them little. I don't even, what are they, like 4 millimeter wide strips? Like, good God, it's hard, but it can be done. The data pad is on the back of the strip, and the power and ground are on the front. So you can use a Ghost. I believe it was GRB color order, and it is 5 volt. So make sure you do 5 volt. But yeah, you can use a Ghost. And yeah, definitely don't use the boxes if you're using the Ghost. Oh, yeah, I didn't know you guys were gonna come down. Yeah, it was. I'm glad it's almost been a year, but thank God that's behind me. That that sucked. But yeah, man, I mean, you want to come down, check out the place. There's not a ton to see, as I'll show you in a video here in the future. But by all means, you come out and check out the setup. When I finally get, it might be a couple years, but we finally move and I get a shop set up and stuff. That'll be when it's like, do some get-togethers or something. Yeah, the 2903, man. I'm all about that. Definitely new Demonized soon. Hopefully real soon. We'll see. So nothing brighter than the 2903 that we have in strip form. The Demonized are brighter. Those little pods that we sell as well. And they are 5 volt. We can one up the 2903. So I do want to expand in what we offer to interior lighting as my next focus. And then I might move to exterior, things like rock lights and things like that. Because there are a lot of things that we can do expand. Rock lights are a great one because you can pack a lot inside of a rock light, like, really bright LEDs or something like that, because it's a little bit of a different format. My main focus has always been headlights and taillights, like building lights out, which is all about density and having as many LEDs as possible per meter. But I do see the benefit to other forms, and I get asked all the time about interior lights more than anything. I don't think there's a lot of companies that are doing like good interior stuff, so that's something I do want to try to focus on at some point here. Yeah. I got a dash cam. If it happens, maybe I'll post the video, but I'm not gonna put it in cop mode and go drive down the road. No. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm reading their YouTube chat. Sorry, man, I'm a little behind. You guys are you guys are getting way ahead of me. Settings, yeah, I don't. This is my first live chat, so I don't even know anything about the see them as they come in. Some of them are just coming in so quick that I couldn't even keep up. Yeah, it's small wire. Small wire is a big thing. I noticed on the, so I do have new strips in now. They're not on the website. I haven't had the chance. I've got 110 and 120 centimeter versions of the interior strips if you need something different. And I do have a controller. The controllers that they come with are only capable up to 110. But I do have the 120s, which you can run to a Ghost or something like that, and it'll be perfectly fine. And I do have those. I don't even remember the price point because I didn't get them on the website yet. I saw them as like extra kits at the shows in case people want to add some more strips to their kit. But I do have those if you need them. But keep in mind, if you're running the 120s, you probably want to power inject at both ends because that is a very small strip to be carrying a lot of power. So keep that in mind. And yeah, the soldering, hopefully you're good at it because, like, I solder a lot and it was intimidating. I got it, but it was intimidating. Oh, the Forester. So at one point, the Forester, because it's built, so I bought it with a built motor and 6-speed and a front mount. And that was about it. It was actually advertised as being a sleeper. So I got it home from Jersey, and like the motor was blown. Like as soon as I ran, because I ran some seafoam through it to try to clean it out a little bit, and that knocked all the carbon loose, and it was done. So I had to rebuild, and so we ended up getting up to 525 wheel on 93, and that's when the motor blew again from a loose knock sensor, a leaking exhaust manifold, and I can't remember if there was anything else. Well, I was running 93 on a Subaru. You don't want to do that. Don't run 93. You got to run like E85 or meth injection or something like that. So I rebuilt it again. Now I've got higher compression, so I'm running 9.8 to 1 instead of the stock 8.5 to 1. So it drives better. It's got a lot more low end torque. I do have meth injection now too. It's got iron sleeves. It's got forged pistons. It's got forged rods. It's got a nitrate crank, forged crank. It's got bigger cams. It's got bigger valves. It's got the 6-speed, bigger turbo, ported and polished, everything. It is built about as much as you can build a motor, at least a Subaru motor. But I'm quite frankly terrified to turn it up because that downtime killed me. I realized how much I enjoyed the shows more than driving. And that's when it became a full-fledged show car. I just decided I'm on a break-in tune right now. I think I've got like 240 horse at 14 pounds of boost. We were running about 26 pounds before. If I was on E85 with that same turbo, I should be able to hit 600 or so. But, you know, I don't. The higher compression would limit the amount of boost that we can run and things like that. But it'd also be a better torque curve instead of, you know, not having any power until you hit 4,000 RPMs. It's more flat. So currently not much, but it also doesn't need to go anywhere. So yeah, those things. Yeah, they are. It might be 3 mil. It's not much. They are small. So you definitely don't want to use like 18 gauge wire or nothing. Like you're going to regret that really fast. I'm thinking they're using like 22, 20, probably 24. And that's probably plenty. So shipping can be problematic for stuff like that. Like I try to do free shipping, and anything over 22 inches, it like doubles the cost of shipping. So it's something you could probably create some tailgate strips for trucks or something. That might actually be a really good market for you. You know, I have a few guys that I sell them like custom stuff, and then they like assemble it into kits for like Fords and things like that, like trucks on the grills. And, you know, it's a nice little side gig. They figure it out. I would say in your case, I mean, you've obviously already dived in pretty cool, pretty good with what you got. And if that's something that you want to try to take on, man, I mean, I don't think it would be a ton of extra work, and it would be a great side gig to build like a tailgate strip like that. Figure out a controller that works. Obviously, we have the ones that we sell in 5 volt and 12 volt, and we can develop one for the RGB. It would be a little bit of an investment on your part to do, but it's something we do for a lot of different companies, and, you know, they order a couple controllers, couple strips, couple this, couple that, double, triple their money selling them to other guys. That's another thing. Like, I'm not in the truck scene. Like, yeah, I got a Silverado, but I'm not in any forums for Silverados. So, like, you've probably got a better connection to those people than I do, personally. And you might do pretty well. So, if you want to do something like that, yeah, I mean, I can get you the strips and stuff that you need, and it would just be like, you know, dropping it in an aluminum rail and epoxying it in so that, you know, it's nice and safe, secure. And I obviously we can do IP68. I've got IP68 on the UCS 2903 right now. If you wanted to see that, I could, you know, kind of show you, which would be one option. Or I have one roll of IP68 RGBW in right now. And we could also do custom lengths if you want to get a set. So the strips do have data out at the end, and you could do that. Just definitely consider the power factor. You don't want to run all that power through the strips, but you do have data out. So yeah, at the end of the strips, you can run from one strip to another. Yeah, the aluminum channels are great. Yeah, I do have the silicone waterproof stuff. Oh, is it still up there? Yeah. I've only got one in right now. It's usually custom order stuff because it is a little bit more expensive than like Glow or something like that. But this is the stuff that I have on my truck currently for the underglow. It is 90 LEDs per meter. It is flexible. It is IP68. So yeah, it gives you an idea of like something that we can do if that's something that you want to do, for sure. Yeah, definitely, man. Tuner. So yeah, that became a problem too with all the EPA crackdowns and stuff. So currently, I'm tuned. I've bypassed so many things. I'd have to go open source like a ROM Raider or something, and probably get somebody to tune me from overseas, because like a lot of American tuners are kind of terrified of tuning stuff now because of stuff. So I was originally with IA Performance, Stephen Clark, I believe it was, and he did a really good job. He did a great job. So I went with him, and he did really well. My plans were to go junior tuned, and he's really good with Subarus. I mean, he knows his Subarus. Subarus are very unique in where I think from the research that I've done and how many Subarus I've owned and messed with and modified and things like that, I've learned enough to know that while there are some tuners that can tune just about anything, I want someone that knows the Subaru inside and out. I don't want like a good tuner. I want a good Subaru tuner. So if I went that way, I would. Right now I'm on Cobb, but I haven't hooked it up to a computer in forever because I'm terrified that they're gonna like lock me out of my map or something stupid. So I'm not on a flex tune, but it's like bypassing any emissions systems now is like taboo. You can't do it. So it's on the tune that it's on, and I probably am not gonna touch it. Yeah, man, aluminum, man. It's the way to go. Yeah. I've got a set of those cheap taillight things on my car or my truck that I got a while ago, and they didn't last long at all. But that's also cheap. I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you want to get cheap, you go to Amazon, you buy something cheap. But the UCS 2903, if it's done right, they ain't going to go out. They'll last forever. They just got to be waterproofed right. And that is where this stuff comes in. That's stuff IP68. If it's done right. Don't do 67. 67 is listed as waterproof. That's not. 65 is water resistant. It is not. IP68. And yeah, no, it works good. So for shows, it's a different market. I don't bring product. I bring lights, like retrofits. So I have some retrofits that I've done, and I bring those and I set them up, mostly for demos, but they are for sale. I also have a board with all of my halos on them, and I sell kits. I've never sold a kit, but it's nice to have them there. People can see the shapes. It draws attention. People can see, that we are developing, we are doing different things. I have just finished designing a, what are we going to call it? I think it's the Cherry Blossom Halo. That should be in next week. And that was a direct result of somebody that's somewhat local to me with a Arizona Tea themed car, and she wanted to get a set of lights built themed for that. So, the case of having those halos, that was something she wanted to get done, and it seemed like something that I think people will probably consider buying. So I went ahead and put the investment in to design the halo. All halos are designed by me, so I do the design work on the PC, and then I put them into CAD and I send them over to my guys, and they engineer the LEDs onto them. So they take the CAD file and lay it all out and all that, and then make them and send them back over to me. So that one was designed by me. Another great case for the laser cutter. When I design a halo, I can actually cut it out in like a white acrylic and sort of simulate what a halo would look like and see, okay, how does it fit? Okay, that's good. Or, we got it a little bit smaller. I want to open up here. I want to do this. The laser cutter's really cool for that. So yeah, when I go to a show, that's kind of a lot of it, is bringing products to show. I have a custom 10 by 10 tent canopy thing with the logo on there, so that draws in. A lot of it is really just connecting. I do pick up builds locally and get my name out there a little bit more, but it's just really fun to go to the shows and meet people. I think it helps motivate me. Like, I work at home, and I don't really have a ton of interactions with people other than social media. So going to the shows is kind of like a refuel for things. I'm really looking forward to SEMA in October. This will be my first year. Super excited to check it out. And I think that'll kind of be another of that refuel part, but also connecting. I'm going to be connecting with a lot of people that I need to be connecting with. So excited to see where that goes. And I am thinking about leaving the car behind to go to some really far away shows. Trailer, and yeah, it's not always great. I want to go to Florida. I want to go to Chicago's got a really big Subaru show. Florida's got a really big one. There's one in Connecticut. I'll probably take the Subaru to Connecticut. I've done it once, and this time I would do it as a booth. I do want to do that. I go to Boxer Fest, which is about 2 hours away. That's in York. And the other ones I kind of... it's going to be next year if I do. But there's one in Chicago and there's one in Florida, Orlando area. I want to go to both, but I don't know that I'm going to take the Forester. It's a lot. I'm not familiar with Pudo. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a whole lot brighter than the 2903s. Even compared to like the V6 Underglow. Now, granted, that's a, it's different. It's different ammo. It's cheap. I mean, it's hard to. Glow's doing great stuff. That's why I sell it on the website. They have great bang for the buck. The cost is great. the output is great. Is it the best output? No. But like if I was to create an underglow lineup with the UCS 2903, my price point would not be ideal at all. So I love what Glow's doing. I'm super happy that he's in that side because the amount of inventory that I would have to have on hand and things I would have to develop. I mean, maybe I could develop what he's developed. So I'm sure we could have figured something like that out, but it would have taken a lot of money and a lot of time away from everything else that I'm trying to do that. So I love what Glow's doing. But if you're talking about small scale, something like that, I mean, we do have options. It's not like a full underglow kit. You're talking about like a rear tailgate or something like that. And it does edge out the V6, but, you know, come V10, I'm sure it probably won't be the same story. Yeah, my own vehicle, same story. I actually, so my legacy lights, I've done and redone a couple times over the years. So the original lights are like 4 years old. So the lens covers are starting to peel. So I'm going to have to redo them. And then it was like, I got it up my butt. I think I want to do jewels. But it's like, do I have time to do jewels? I don't know. I bought a set of jewels and I bought a set of lights. And at some point that'll get done. I want to do taillights on the legacy and at some point that'll get done. But when? I think you could definitely do it, man. I think that's a lot of what I do. Like there's plenty of stuff that I develop myself and I sell, but there's also a lot of other builders that I support with parts. And obviously you're going to get a better deal if you're doing bulk and you're ordering with me. So it's like you tell me what you want and I'll get you a price and it's basically like, you know, you pay now and you get it later. It's what I'm doing currently is basically that. So in that case, yeah, I mean, if you want to try to develop that and sell it, I can help you out. I would say that you're going to want some kind of an input. We can use an SP110E. We can use any SP controller that you want for the most part, and we can design just like I have for the DRLs for the with the turn signals and the inputs and stuff like that. We can design something like that for it. Ours is RGBW, but that doesn't mean it has to be. We can redesign one that is RGB and has the turn signals, the reverse, things like that as well. So don't don't be worried about that. Now, it, you know, cost wise will be more than a basic SP controller, but you'll have the brake function, you'll have the turn signals, you'll have the DRLs. You can even have startup animations if you want. We can program that stuff in there too. So a good bit of flexibility, and we can make it RGB compatible. So it is generally very hard to work with fog lights. It can be done, but they're usually really small, so it's hard to retrofit a projector into them. And a lot of times there's aftermarket options for fog lights that have amazing output. Diode Dynamics Max, SS3 Max are stupid. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like $500, but you can shine your light a mile down the road, so I guess it's worth it. Yeah, I think Hillbilly had some good stuff, but he kept trying to go down a road that nobody wanted to go down, and I think it killed him because he just he and I told him early on. This is before I was building any, I was developing anything, selling anything. He reached out to me and we talked, and I told him what I wanted as a builder. I said, "This is what I want, and this is what the guys that I talk to want." I'm talking to the guy like Jay. This is what we want. And he insisted that's not where he wanted to go. He wanted to do RGBs with 9,000 LEDs, and unfortunately, man, I just don't think the market was following him in that direction. So I think at a certain point he kind of bowed out, just said, he didn't want to do it. He just wasn't excited. And that's huge. Like, straight up, any of you guys out there building lights, at the point that this isn't fun anymore, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is not a get rich quick industry. I do this for fun. I do this because I love it. I do it because it's a passion, because it's enjoyable. At the point that it's not that, get out. Get out. This is not where it's at. Yeah, Wicked Big Meat. So I did that 1 year. I got I think they're outside. I got Best in Show with the Forester in 2021. So that was a highlight of my car show career. Now it's mostly booths, so you don't get judged at the booths. But I definitely want to go back out to Wicked Big Meat. That was awesome. I did Boxer Fest, and then you got Subi Fest in Florida, and I think it's also called Subi Fest in Chicago. Yeah, I want to do both of those. So we'll see. They got one in LA too, but I ain't going that far. That's too far. Yeah, snorkels. Yeah, let me know, man. I mean, you had a lot better luck opening them things up than I did, but I don't know. Maybe they're making them cheaper now. Yeah. I mean, the dude was trying hard. Hillbilly would bend over backwards to do custom boards and shapes and stuff, and that was huge. I couldn't do it. I get a lot of people to hit me up for stuff like that. It's like, man, there's so much time and money and everything involved to do it. I just can't. He was doing something very different. Yeah, man. Shows. I don't feel like enough builders do shows. And to each his own. Like, Jay doesn't need to. If Jay did it, he'd probably regret it. But if you're struggling, to get traction in the scene, or like price points, I think a lot of builders get pushed into charging less because they just want to get sales. They want to, so they try to price it at that point. But the shows really help because you see the cars where people are spending the money, and you can step it up a little bit. So I think the shows are worth it, especially if it's local, if it's not too far of a drive. And you got to find the right ones. I don't do my super local shows that are down the street. I don't do it. I don't know why. We're an hour outside of D.C. This town does not spend money on lights. They don't do it. But that's fine. But, there's no point in me setting up a booth at one. So I don't go. I usually do the indoor shows. If you get a little bit closer to D.C., go about an hour west or east of here, usually you'll find the right people. For me, at least. You're down there, South Carolina, I think, right? So a little different. Yeah, man. Later. I'll catch you later. Thanks for chiming in, dude. Hopefully, hopefully I answered most of your questions there. I'm behind. Trying to catch up here. All right, guys. You guys have a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I got plenty of ideas for my own stuff. We'll see. Yeah, good luck with that, man. Yeah, I think that's what sets it apart, man. Especially if it's an outdoor show, you want it to be bright and you want to sell it as bright, and you're gonna have a lot of tire kickers. Every time I go to a show, it's nonstop. I do not stop talking to people all day long, nonstop lines of people. It really helps if you have a flashy car, something with a lot of your work on it, and it draws a lot of people in, and you get a lot of tire kickers. You got a lot of people that have no intent of buying things, and then you get the people to buy stuff. The last show I did 4,500 at the show, and then residual after the fact, probably another 2-3 grand in light orders, custom light orders, and then that's gonna trickle down. Just like Jay, he has so many people. You go to a show in his area, there's probably a few people there with lights by him, and word of mouth and things like that. It takes off. Yeah, drop in stuff is great, but from a development point, it's not ideal just because of the cost factor. Yeah, I think for the interior stuff, one of the reasons why it's not really Blue Ghost is because of simplicity and cost. So Blue Ghost would have made it a little bit more complicated because they would have had to run thicker wires and more of them. And with those simple wireless controllers, it made it just a simple 12 volt. I quite honestly sell 80% of them at car shows because it's people that can see them. They see them on my car, and then they see the kits, and I can explain the kits, and they feel like, oh, I can do that. That's not too bad. Whereas a lot of the other stuff, it can feel a little bit intimidating. And I think that a lot of guys that are just getting into lighting, they don't want that intimidation. And that's something that Ghost would do. Glow Industries actually has some 12 volt stuff out now. I have not tried it yet, so I cannot give it an honest opinion on it. But it does look pretty good. And at least, videos. So it's interesting to see what he does, but he doesn't have that controller system in it, and that's something I told him is like I wouldn't switch to his because the controllers is what sells it for me. Is that simplicity? It's just power and ground on all 5 controllers, and that's it. So people like that. That's why they buy it from me at shows. I don't know that I want to get away from it on that, but other kits, I could, yeah, go a different direction. I'm talking like under dash and things like that. Absolutely, man. I'm all about trying to help as much as I can, share what I've learned, share what I see, and grow together, man. I've loved cars ever since I was in high school. I had an Integra, Fast and Furious kind of stuff, and so that's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. But it's like, getting into it is like, am I ever really gonna do any more than just have a car? And so this is kind of that opportunity for me to get in, and it's an amazing experience just to be involved at all, even in the retrofitting side, and then now to have gotten as far as I've been able to get. So I appreciate you guys' support because obviously if all it was crickets on everything that I'm trying to share with people, it wouldn't have much of an effect. So I definitely recognize you guys' input and your support. And that's what this video is about, is try to get an idea what you guys want to see. And I got quite a few ideas here. So I'm going to try to do some videos and touch on a few of those things that you guys mentioned. And we'll see about what else we can do development-wise. Definitely had some good ideas from some people, so we'll see. Yeah, the full kit is good. I like the full kit. Yeah, you got to hit the right shows. So I mean, even if it is a couple hours away, if it's the right show, it'll be worth it. The wrong shows, you know, if you're in the wrong crowd, it sounds like Mopar. I mean, that would be the one you want. So you probably have the right one pinned. Yeah, that's a lot more custom. You're starting to talk about like molding stuff in, and then it's kind of almost more finding the right thing, whatever that is. I could even, you know, it's all about what direction you want to take it, and a lot of times it's trying to figure out if you can use what already exists for it. But sometimes, you know, the case of the Headliner is a really good example. The Headliner was one where nothing existed that would do a Headliner and addressable. So I had to make it. And it made sense. And I don't know, I might have broken even by now. I don't know if I did on the investment, but just the outcome I think was worth it. It's worth the investment in the end. Even if I haven't sold enough to break even yet. It was cool. I like it. Yeah. Vendor's a little different experience, man. I've been in the shows, and the one thing I've noticed when I have my car, if I'm near my car, people are less likely to walk around it and check it out. But if I'm not, they check it out more. And when I'm at a booth, I'm not really at my car. So people will generally form a crowd around my car at shows. And I think it's that standoffishness of like, you know, the owner's standing right there. And so you it's kind of intimidated, maybe. And people kind of like walk on. So you actually get more attention at your car if it's parked next to your booth. And then you're just kind of like at the booth ignoring your car. You get a lot of attention. People see a lot of stuff. And then they come up to you and like, hey, I want what you did there. Do it on mine. You know. So there you go. You get a sale. Yeah. Yeah, quite a while back. I'm 37 now or something like that. So yeah, that was kind of my heyday. It was like 90s, early 2000s. Worked at Circuit City, driving my 94 Integra. Fast and Furious and Need for Speed Underground, man. Street Glow, APC, Type S. Oh yeah. Yeah, man, that's hard. I want to light up my engine bay, and that's one thing that I've kind of struggled with. We are one of the many things that I'm working on developing is a kind of like a custom sized waterproof halo kit that will fit in the strut towers on cars. I think it looked kind of cool. So, kind of run some wires from that to a controller and light up your strut, the where the I don't know what it's called, the where your struts bolt up in there, and you got the little lips around it, and put them right down in there for aftermarket struts and stuff like that. So that's something that is in the works. Initially, my car will be the guinea pig, getting the first set, and then if it works out well, and I get some sizing on different cars, and I see how consistent sizing is, which I don't imagine it will be extremely, but I could be wrong. That's something I want to try to push more. I think a UCS be too much. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but like it's kind of unnecessary stuff. So my headliner, I run at 10%. If I put it at 100%, it'd be a tanning bed in there. There's no point. At 10%, it's impressive. It's hard to miss. At 100%, it's too much. It's stupid. So, I don't know. Interior doesn't need to be nearly as bright as exterior. So, I don't know. You'd want the 12-volt UCS inside. Less maybe like under the dash, aiming down maybe. But even that's a lot. Like SK is plenty. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right on, man. Grew up in the great, in my opinion, the best years for the car scene. And my experiences were working at Circuit City with a whole bunch of young kids, and after work, hang out in the parking lot. It was fun. I miss it. I miss those days. That's my car is very much stylized around those time periods of wide body kits and molded everything and crazy charge speed Boom X body kits, and yeah, that's my thing. That's what I like. So that's what I did. I was broke at that time, so products that I used, not many, but I remember like Skunk and Sparco and APC and Street Glow, even though they're still sort of around, but I think they've kind of obsolete now. Stuff like that. I mean, I probably know more about the brands from like Need for Speed Underground than anything. UV, no, I've never even dabbled in that. I don't. Gosh, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'd have to Google that one. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a start. I really want to light up my engine bay collectively, totally. But I think that's the start for me because it was like, okay, well, this makes sense. It's away from the heat. It should hold up fine. And it's just empty space. And nobody else has done it. Like, people have lit up engine bays. Nobody's done the strut tower. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the start. And then this probably my big change for the winter is going to be figuring out where to put the strips, and it's got to be hidden. I do not want you to see the LEDs. So, figuring that out, I don't know. Every engine's different. Every bay is different. But the rings, the halo rings, yeah. And they're going to be diffused, so it will look pretty good. Yeah, especially with the zones on the Ghost. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, it's not just a simple blue light. Like UV LEDs are different. So I'm not sure what caveats you'd have to deal with that. If anybody even just makes straight UV, or if it's like a filter over top of other LEDs. Because I feel like normal bulbs, they're just like, it's like a coating over top of it or something that makes it UV. So I don't. I've never really dabbled in the UV much. I mean, obviously I'm familiar with them, but never used them. Yeah. 3D printing would be interesting. Have you messed with CAD work much? Well, it is getting late. I gotta wake up a little bit early tomorrow, so I think it's a good time to tap out. I do appreciate everybody joining in. I appreciate all the support, continued support, and I definitely appreciate the input and a lot of ideas and stuff to do. So I'm gonna put a lot of that in my plans. Try to figure out what works, what don't, and get it done. And you guys have yourself a good evening. And you know, we'll try to do this again. I think it did pretty well. I think it was pretty, successful, involved. People got involved. That's good. I'm happy. Happy you guys made it. I'm going to figure out my focus issues. Probably have to switch it to manual. We'll see. And until the next one, man. If you guys need anything, reach out. Let me know.